Time to talk Miami football here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, which we do normally several times a week, but the best possible source for Miami football talk that I know of. Therefore, we appreciate the time to bring on it Cam Underwood from State of the U to talk Miami. This has been our time and date recently, Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. We appreciate everyone's patience. At the same time, understand we're coordinating schedules. Therefore, this is not a set time. So please subscribe, set the bell for the notifications here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Therefore, you know when we're going live, specifically with Cam and across the board. Cam, how you doing this morning?
Hello.
How you doing this morning? Can you hear me? So while we wait for Cam to pull together the technical aspects, he obviously can't hear me at this point. He'll be right back. I will run through the live chat and also remind you that we've got season previews posted from Nebraska and Maryland. Michigan is coming, Arkansas and others. We had a race relations discussion the other night, both at the conclusion of the Florida State show. So go about 45 minutes into Florida State. The live show with James Coleman, Jason Parker, and Logan Robinson. Go about 45 minutes in if you just want to hear the race relations discussion. Also a different post and conversation that we had the other night. Cam, how we doing?
Is it working now?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, you're good.
Good.
You're good. Better, we're good. Everybody
better now that my microphone is working.
So again, I gave you the illustrious introduction that you did not hear, but everyone else did. So hopefully
I heard it.
Okay.
I just, when I went to go respond to it, I couldn't speak. So yeah, it was not great for that, obviously, but no, I'm good. Just hanging out. Saturday morning time. Got a little free time from the secret day job. So yeah, here to talk some Canes. Let's go.
Well, Cam, we've got the first signs of football in the fall. That's guys on campus working out. As is the case across the nation, that's a limited number based on social distancing concerns and phasing this process through. So how do we stand in Miami based on the information that is out there?
Yeah, so last week we had guys starting to come back to campus. These are players who were rehabbing from injuries and things of that nature. So they were some of the first ones allowed because they're, getting their treatment and whatnot. So they were able to do that. And you're starting slowly to see the other guys making their way back down to Coral Gables. It was put out on social media that Miami got access to the Green Tree practice fields this past week. So it seems, there's guys who are getting out there. They're starting to, do their own player-led workouts and things like that. Maybe in the near future, the weight room and strength and conditioning coach Feely can get in there and start working with guys in that way. And it's small steps, but a small step is still a step. And that's a thing that some people don't necessarily realize. Sometimes you want to fast forward to the end of the race, but, like a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And, it might not seem monumental at the time, but it still is movement. And that's what we're starting to see. So Blake James, the athletic director, said that he anticipates or I don't know what the word was. It was guesses or feels or something like that. It wasn't anything concrete, but it was one of those kind of statements. But he feels that the season will start on time. But he also feels that it would be without fans in the stands. So for the September 6th or 5th, opener for the Miami Hurricanes, that's what Blake James put out there. And that was not necessarily a concrete statement. Again, that was his thoughts, feelings. I forget the word that he used, but it was something nebulous like that. But yeah, it seems, again, that we're starting to see movement towards there being football in the fall. The actual way that will look, other kind of considerations, if there are fans in the stands. Barry Jackson from the Miami Herald wrote a nice piece where he was talking about, so if the season happens in the fall and fans are allowed in the stands, but we're still following some kind of social distancing rules and, constraints on how many people can be in the facility at one time, who gets to go to the games? So that was a thing that he evaluated at the Miami Herald and things like that. So again, yeah, well, there are guys on campus. There are guys coming back to campus. There have been, plenty of videos of guys working out where they are, whether that's in Miami or elsewhere. De'Aaron King has been out there. The wide receivers, Mark Pope, D. Wiggins. We've seen some weightlifting from some other guys, some of the high school commits who were not able to enroll early but are coming down. So we're starting to see that. We're getting towards that. But again, yeah, a single step is still a step. What is going on with my light? Lord Jesus. Yeah, single step is still a step, and looks like we're stepping that way.
If you need to step away, he's talking about steps just to handle the light situation, of course. We're here.
No, it keeps blinking. It's weird. Hold on. Yeah, hold on.
That's happened to all of it. So I will certainly let everyone know, based on how I see things, that I would anticipate that the situation that we have in the stadiums would mirror what we see out in retail establishments and that I see at work and other places in regards to, limitations, obviously, on the capacity versus the crowd ratio. And I've heard those estimations concerning other schools and other football programs. If your place seats 100,000, maybe it's 20 to 50. And then I would anticipate that there is going to be a circulation of traffic, just like you see again in retail establishments, possibly at your place of business, where you see, and then maybe there are increments of people that are allowed into the stadium 4 hours before, 3:45, 3 hours and 30 minutes prior, to separate them and then funnel the traffic into the stadium and then separate people, have seats removed if it needs to come to that, to ensure, for the most part, social distancing. And I'm sure we could go into all sorts of details of how it could be arranged. And then in addition to that, you brought up the concern of the challenge of determining who those people would be. We have huge football programs that pack out stadiums, and there would have to be some type of merit system, I would guess, possibly half random, half merit, or some combination of the two.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing because, you've sold these tickets, especially for the season ticket holders. So, Giovanni from Hialeah, why is he not entitled to going to the game as opposed to Frank from Miami Beach? And I get, maybe that wasn't a great example because people would say, well, if you live on Miami Beach, you probably bought a higher caliber ticket, so you spent more money, but if you got a guy from, Central Fort Lauderdale and a guy from Hialeah, a guy from Doral, they both have season tickets and things like that. What's to say? And they've had the season tickets for both 5 years. They're both in the same, price range, all things being equal. What's the determining factor? And you do have to make a decision or have a process to make a decision, to move forward. And I know that this is a different engagement that we've talked about, but this is similar to recruiting where, if all things being equal, you got to make a choice. So we're seeing a similar this is a binary situation. If you're getting to, we have room for one or the other, Giovanni and his family, or, Frank and his family from Fort Lauderdale. We have space for one of them in the stadium, and there has to be a choice made. So you have to have a foundation to make that choice. I don't know what that is, but, these are all the kind of things that I'm sure that the athletic department and ticket sales and, customer care are all talking about because, it matters.
I would think that the first determination would be taking a sample or a survey. Well, just flat out asking everyone, are you comfortable with coming back to the games, and giving that option for those people that aren't comfortable coming back to the games, the first out. Right.
But let's say I'm not. Give me a refund? Probably not. So then what are we going to do, on the financial side? Because there is that, I've bought a thing that I'm not comfortable in redeeming because of, this. I mean, we can go down the hypothetical, rabbit hole, with this and with many topics, but there's just a lot going on.
If you root for another team besides Miami, or even if you root for the Canes as well, and you're in the live chat, and it's not obvious from your avatar who you root for, because I'm seeing a trend, so I think it's a good thing, just let us know who you root for. Got an Auburn fan right there. All right, I've got Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U to talk Miami football. We've got recruiting news as it's been rolling in week by week. And again, we remind everyone that we have had roughly double the commits that we normally have at this point in the recruiting calendar. The last numbers I saw were plus 700 as opposed to about 300 to 350 at that same date.
It's almost, I mean, I've seen so many more that we got to be pushing 850, 900, I want to say. Like, it was just a random last week Tuesday, like not even like oh, this is Mother's Day or my birthday, or, you know, like when players like to commit. And I get it because, you know, life milestone day and, you know, want to do the, but it's like a random Tuesday. And I literally saw 12 commits come down the timeline to various schools within 15 minutes. I mean, these kids are not messing around with getting their spots locked in. So yeah, I would say it's probably approaching 2.5 or 3 times as many commitments right now as opposed to any of the last 3 years. We're getting almost to the point where this season at this point has almost as many commits as the last 3 years combined at this time. Like, that's how many. It's crazy, you know, but, you know, obviously, you know, without having being able to do visits, things are a little bit different. But in terms of Miami did get a commit this past week, and it was from 4-star wide receiver Jacoby George from Plantation. If that name sounds familiar, he is a guy who was committed to Miami and then decommitted during last season's atrocious play in November. He's an electric kind of guy, a 5'11", 160. So he's not the most physically developed, but he makes up for that with speed. He had 28 catches for 600 something yards and 9 touchdowns as a sophomore. Bumped that up to 40 something catches for 1,100 yards and 16 touchdowns as a junior last year. So this is a guy who can play. This is a guy who scores. He finds the end zone. The only other player that I remember off the top of my head categorically who had numbers like that was Ivan McCartney coming out of Miramar, who had 9 touchdowns on 11 catches as a sophomore, and then he had 12 touchdowns on 36 catches as a junior, I want to say, before becoming an All-American. So you're talking about that kind of production. You know, Ivan McCartney was a 4-star recruit. He ended up going to West Virginia, should have went to Miami. He even said that to me personally, because I worked at Miramar. I know Ivan. But, you know, when you're talking about a guy who over the course of 2 high school seasons for his sophomore and junior year, he has 20 or more touchdowns. Jacoby George is in rare air in that kind of a way. So, yeah, he's electric. He's very fast. He's shifty. He's the kind of guy who can really use space and speed to affect the game in a positive way. So getting him back in this class is a big get for Miami. Miami's starting to push for wide receivers. Rob Likens, the wide receivers coach who came in from Arizona State, has had 2 first-round draft picks, or a first-round draft pick, a wide receiver in each of the last 2 years, that being Nicole Harry and Brandon Ayuk. So, you know, his development and production is players producing at the college level and then moving on at the highest level almost of the NFL in the first round. Hey, that's a big thing. So obviously I think that matters. I think that he's proving himself to be a good recruiter, and we're moving forward with that. George is the first wide receiver in this class. There are 2 tight ends in Khalil Brantley and Elijah Arroyo, although Malik Curtis from Bishop Verot, we're recruiting him on defense. But again, I really think that he should just be a Tavon Austin, Roscoe Parrish, put him in space and let him cook on offense kind of guy. He has elite speed. So personally, I still would like to see Malik Curtis on offense as opposed to defense. But Miami seems to be looking in a different direction. So I won't obviously categorize him as that, but I think he should play offense. Let that be known. Moving forward at wide receiver, Romelo Brinson from Miami Northwestern, who was also formerly committed to Miami, is committing somewhere in the next week. It might be today. It might be next Saturday. I forget which one, because I memorize numbers and I just have a lot of numbers kind of going in my head, like that scene from The Hangover in the casino right now, just because, it's a little early still, even though I've been up for a minute. Anyway, Romelo Brinson's committing somewhere. Seems to be down to Miami and maybe Texas A&M. I saw a Georgia recruiting writer thinks that Georgia and Miami are at the top. It would be a big get to get him. He's a 4-star All-American. He's a beast for Miami Northwestern. To get him back in the class would be great. Then you have some other guys also that you're looking at. The Jaden Alexis kid from Monarch. There's another couple guys, maybe a Keith Brown from Central, maybe a Brashard Smith from Palmetto. The latter two of them are slot receivers more because, they're in that 5'8", 5'9", 5'10" range. The other guys can play, more the X or the Z because of their size. So yeah, Miami looks to be building a good class. There's 15 commitments right now. I think we're borderline top 10 nationally. But yeah, getting Jacoby George back is a big get because he's a guy who can play here and he can play really well. So he's one of your top end talents. So yeah, getting him and hopefully, adding a couple of these other guys would be great.
We appreciate the super chat contributions. I will get to those in just a minute and get those to the screen. So we recognize those. Thank you so much. And the recognition that you have of Cam's time each and every week that he gives us here. And also what we do each and every day here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And Cam, I love to go to the 247 stats on these guys. So with Romelo Brinson, we're talking about the 25th rated wide receiver according to the composite. The wide receiver category seems to be extremely high in the composite, meaning every time we talk recruits and then I turn to the composite, I'll see a player's like ranked the 25th rated wide receiver in the country. And consider, folks, there are, even if you group the offensive line as one position, which they don't, it's typically centers, guards, and tackles, you're talking 12 or 13 positions. Safeties, corners, linebackers, inside and outside, defensive tackles, rush ends, go through the whole list, offensive, defensively. We're talking close to 15 positions. And so I'll look at a wide receiver, and the first stat I'll see is, let's say, 25th rated wide receiver, as is the case with Brinson. And I'll think, oh, we're talking a 300 player, top 300 player, top 132 player. So the wide receiver, and I see this normally with wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, there's just athletic talent there, and especially as football has developed and the proliferation of the passing game, not even necessarily like a spread, Mike Leach, Texas Tech air raid, Hal Mummy kind of thing. But I mean, yeah, if you're talking 3 or 4 wide receivers starting, number 25 in the class is either the between the 6th and the 8th like lineup. If I just went 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 3, that's rare air. You know what I mean? That's up there. So yeah, I mean, there's just guys who can come in and impact the game, and there's so many programs and so much talent. They're just like, yeah, they can come in and they can play well, and they can really impact the games. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a thing just where the value is high, although the proliferation of that position is also high. You know what I mean? So there's going to be many of them. But there's many good ones just because you're better athletes. You're going to put in those kind of positions where they can get in some space and then they can dominate. But you do still have the places where you have guys who are the franchise. They are the best player on their team. So you're going to put them at quarterback so they touch the ball on every play, and they're the ones who make the decisions. But then they also will go to college and then switch to wide receiver. Obviously, guys like Anquan Bolden, Ethnic Sands, if you're talking about Miami specifically. Other guys are like that. But yeah, wide receiver, there's just a lot of talent, and also the development and proliferation of not South Florida, I just was reading the question, excuse me, 7-on-7 football. That's a thing, so like these guys, they refine their skills and they're able to come in and really, play at a high level.
So I got to think that if I've recognized this, obviously everybody's recognized this that has anything to do with recruiting that looks at it, but specifically those sites themselves, those platforms, ESPN, Rivals, 247 Sports, that are looking to see if they've got an unfair distribution at one position, or if that position just happens to be extra strong, as opposed, you taught class for a long time, balancing out that, do we grade on a curve because I want to have a certain curve to the grades in the class of this current class, or is this just an exceptional class or an underachieving class? And that has to be what it is.
Yeah, honestly. And you'll see, sometimes we talked a couple of years ago about the quarterback class being atrocious. What was that, 2018? Or 19? 19, yeah. with the Michael Johnson Jr. Yeah, the 19 class. Because JT Daniels was supposed to be the 5-star in that class. He reclassified up to 18. So the 1 5-star in that year then wasn't even in that class. So we've even talked about it in terms of recruiting where, there can be a dearth of talent. There can be a redistribution of, okay, like usually you would have 2 or 3 5-star quarterbacks, going to be your Bryce Youngs, your JT Daniels, your da-da-da-da-da. They're going to be 5-star quarterbacks. In that 1 year, they weren't there. So it's just like, all right, we'll see. Spencer Rattler might have been the number 1 quarterback that year. He was like a borderline 4-star, 5-star at the end, even though Spencer Rattler, he caught fire his senior year. So, okay, if you made him a 5-star, we could make it, it stands to reason. But, yeah, I mean, it's a dynamic situation. Some years it's going to be in your top group, it's going to be a whole lot of defensive linemen like we saw a couple years ago. It could be a whole lot of wide receivers. It could be a whole lot of whomever. And it's a fluid situation. Yeah, but you also have to be real about what you have. You know what I mean? Because you want the perfect distribution. You want that bell curve, you want that thing, but you might not have that. When I taught choir, it was like, man, I really want this group to sing these songs, or I wouldn't want to do this, but I didn't have the horses for that. So I'm like, okay, I had to realize that I don't have that. So now I have to change my mindset and I have to work with what I have and then grow and develop that. And look, we did well. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying you're going in and thinking, okay, we're going to run this system. If music is analogous to sport, because it is, we're going to run this system, but I don't have the players to run this system. That means I have to adapt my system to fit the players that I have. Same kind of a thing when you're talking about recruiting. I'm not necessarily going to just say, okay, we have to have a 5-star quarterback if the talent is not there. Now, your number 1 quarterback is going to be your number 1 quarterback. But again, it's a dynamic situation. So, yeah, there is a little bit of wiggle room, we'll call it.
Yeah, I find that kind of metric evaluation pretty fascinating. So we went through Brinson again, 25th rated by 247 Sports Composite. 247 itself has him a little bit lower at number 32, still a top 180 player according to 247 Sports, number 132 overall by the 247 Sports Composite, and right in that top to 20 to 25 player in the state of Florida overall. Then we've got Jacoby George, who's the 34th weighted wide receiver. So we've got pretty comparable players there. Number 178 nationally. That's according to the composite, 26th rated player in Florida. These guys, their numbers are pretty much mirroring each other.
So you see why I'm excited about Jacoby George, because if you think, okay, well, Romelo Brinson, Miami Northwestern, legacy program, things like that. Plantation is a very good program. Steve Davis is a very good coach. They put a lot of talent from that program. What's his name? Ryan Shazier went to that, went there, and things like that. I mean, like that is a program that has put out talent over the course of time. Like, what's the name? Kevin Beard. He went to Miami and then, everything. He went to Plantation, I believe. So, I mean, you got guys who have come through the Plantation program over the course of time. But now you're thinking, okay, Miami Northwestern. That's a supreme legacy program down on 95th Street. Like that's the one that the gold and blue and yo, what's up, AJ? And all kinds of stuff like that, And you think, okay, well, yeah, I want the player from there. And the caliber has to be so different. And then Mark says the stats. And now you see why I'm so excited about Jacoby George, because they're pretty analogous kind of players. Yeah. Now, there was a question in there that I saw about quarterbacks.
Yeah, so I'll get to that in 2 seconds. I just want to make one comment, because I think people get so wrapped up, and I mention this from time to time, get so wrapped up in that kind of gold medal mentality of the United States that if they don't see a 1, 2, or 3 next to that guy's name, if they see number 32, we want to be better than the 32nd best team in the country. Well, as Cam explained, you got 3 to 4 wide receivers, sometimes 5 wide receivers on the field. Don't relate it like that. That's a very crude metric that you can do at 2 positions. You have 1 quarterback on the field. You have 1 center on the field. Other than that, you have multiple players on the field at each position, maybe tight end, depending on your formation, that you could say, I want to be a top 10 program, therefore we should bring in a top 10 quarterback. That's a very crude way to look at it, but it's a general way to kind of determine what type of talent you'd like to bring in. So the quarterback question was, in relation to the conversation we're having and what you're explaining regarding the wide receiver talent that Miami's targeting and bringing in terms of we see all this top end South Florida wide receiver talent. Why don't we see? So the first part of the question, even though it's not included in the question, would be, are we not seeing the quarterback play correlate to the wide receiver play in South Florida at the high school ranks? And number two, why? If that's the case, why?
There's very good high school quarterbacks in South Florida. There's very few that project as good college quarterbacks. Even some of the better ones at the high school level were middling at best. I know that he thinks I hate him, from whatever, but like a Jake Allen from St. Thomas Aquinas, he was perfectly fine. He was a very good high school quarterback. I just didn't think that he was going to be anything special moving forward, which meant that I hated him in his, 18-year-old estimation. And I get it, but he was fine. He was a very good. I mean, look, he caught fire the second half of that state championship season, his senior year at St. Thomas Aquinas. Even I, who am not a big Jake Allen fan, had to say, look, I mean, it was that gif of the guy in the burning suit just walking across the field. Like, that was Jake Allen. He came on the field and, I mean, just on fire. 6'1.5", 6'2", not great instincts, average arm. You know what I mean? And he's one of the better ones that we've seen. Tutu Atwell was an incredible high school quarterback. He's 5'9" and can fly, though. You know what I mean? And look, and I'm not saying that he couldn't play quarterback. That kid would put the ball on a dime 50 yards down the field when he was at Northwestern starring at quarterback. But he's just not going to do that at the college level because you're not going to play a guy that size with that speed at quarterback. You're going to put him at wide receiver. You know what I mean? Even you have guys from all kinds of high schools. You have the guys who have been to Central recently. You got Maurice Alexander, who's at Homestead High School, literally setting records. He goes to FIU. He plays quarterback for a season or two. This is when, FIU was very bad. I mean, that's not really different from now. But before Butch Davis came back, he was pretty bad at quarterback. So then they put him at wide receiver. And that's a guy who even got a chance at a lower level tier school to play quarterback. You know what I mean? It's just a very few are of the caliber where they're going to go on and they're going to play at the college level. You got the couple guys from St. Thomas Aquinas, your John O'Corn, your Jake Rudock, Michigan and Iowa respectively. You had Geno Smith from Miramar going to West Virginia. You probably got a couple other guys, but it's really not many that are of the super high caliber. And there's a statement, I heard it from Bomani Jones, but he got it from somewhere else, that quarterback is the new violin, where you have to start training at a young age. You're looking at all the intricate parts and pieces of the technique. You're going to all these coachings. You're having individual private lessons. You're going here and there and everywhere, whether you're using a traditional method, a Suzuki method for, that's a music education term, but whatever, but there's different ways to teach it. But it's a thing where you're really going to, it takes so much more than showing up to your high school practice, playing in your high school games, and going home. You can develop in that way at other positions, but not quarterback. And we're seeing that there's a disparity with the level of training and the locations of training. Because Georgia, regardless of, in several areas, there's elite level training. Quincy Avery is up there. He's a quarterback guru. There's another couple of guys, in the LA area, in Texas. There are places where the training meets the current standard, the current methodology to really progress past the high school level and be a good caliber quarterback. South Florida doesn't have that. And quite frankly, you're going to have a lot of guys who are not your superstar athletes at quarterback in South Florida, because you'd be best served putting your best athletes elsewhere, probably on the edges of the field on offense or defense. So whereas you might have had a guy, and again, I said it, in my personal view, Ivan McCartney should have been Miramar's quarterback his senior year. This is a kid who I would see come on the field after practice and after games. And with the flick of a wrist, throw the ball 60 yards. And before Ryan Williams transferred from American Heritage, this is before American Heritage was American Heritage. I was like, yo, you need to put Sticks at quarterback and let it work, and then whatever happens, happens. But the specialization of guys on the edges at the skill positions is such where that high level training I was talking about at quarterback that's elsewhere, that high level training at skill position is here. So you're going to develop at cornerback, linebacker, defensive end, wide receiver, running back faster in South Florida because those guys are elite, and the training that you can get even at your random high school where you have God, what was his name? I mean, you have guys who played in the league just coming back and being volunteer coaches at every school. You know what I mean? Like guys who started in college. They might have, even if they went to HBC or something. But yeah, I put up numbers at FAM. I put up numbers at Hampton. And now I'm back home in Miami. I'm going to work at Central. I'm going to be the assistant running backs coach. You know what I mean? So it's like the buy-in and the training. And also like you're just going to have some guys. And a lot of the quarterbacks in South Florida are, again, 2 inches too short and just a little bit less talented. Even though, look, he was a record-setting guy. I hated that I saw him go down with a knee injury before or during the playoffs last year. But Nick Scalzo from Cardinal Gibbons, he's 5'10". How many guys at 5'10" are you really bringing to a top-level program? He's going to play at Kentucky. He's going to eventually be, maybe their starting quarterback at 5'10", 5'11". But there are things that are holding guys who play quarterback back. And again, if you even think 2 years ago to Tutu Atwell, where everybody's saying, oh, he should come to Miami and blah, blah, blah. Tutu Atwell's 5'9" on a good day. So being a good high school quarterback is a thing that South Florida region has a lot of. But having those talents of the requisite size and athletic traits and abilities to transition that forward to the college level, they're few and far between here.
Cam Underwood, State of the U. So I've got 3 assignments for everyone. Hit the like button, subscribe, and then if you've got a second screen or as soon as we're done, head on over to State of the U, take the deep dive on Miami athletics, specifically football. Coming up, of course, hopefully on time, the first week of September. So Cam, man, we got to run down the list of all sorts of questions and comments that people are bringing. John Bosch, we'll start with him asking about offensive line targets and wide receiver targets. Obviously, you've addressed 1 commit and 1 target.
Well, I also mentioned, 3 other guys. You got Jake Alexis from Monarch. You have Brashard Smith from Palmetto, and you have Yokeith Brown from Central. And there's probably even more wide receivers that, oh, what's the kid from out of state?
Louisiana kid?
Yes.
I'll talk to you from there.
Yes. I forget his name. He has a cool name too. Oh man. But I mean, so that's 4 additional guys that Miami could be and is going after at wide receiver, and we'll see what happens. Along the offensive line, look, man, just volume shooting at this point. We're offering as many guys as we can. We're probably we're doing Zoom meetings and virtual visits with as many guys as we can, trying to get some buy-in and then trying to get some momentum with Garen Justice and, obviously with Rhett Lashley and things like that. So we can move forward. So, I mean, it's more, I know that obviously we always want names. Okay. Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? At offensive line right now, it's numbers. You know what I mean? So it's going to the bar on Friday night. Hey, how you doing? Good. You're waiting for your boyfriend. Okay, cool. Hey, how you doing? Okay. Good. Hey, how you? I mean, it's one of those things because eventually, like, oh, I'm good. How are you? Hey, all right. It's going to be one of those. So we're just out there trying to say what's up, trying to see what's up, and eventually, then the name will become known, if that makes sense.
One of Cam's many gifts and talents. If you got me up here, you got me saying they're shooting in the dark. They're doing the best they can. They're trying to find the best talents. Of course, they're going to go for the best, but then if they can't find them, they're going to go to the next one and kind of beautiful. We can all relate. Many of us, most of us, at whatever percentage. I find, Cam, the Miami fan base versus the Florida State fan base and the trash talking back and forth fascinating would be well beyond what I find it. Interesting to a certain extent because you don't have a Clemson, Florida State. They've got their rivalry dynamic where one can just beat down the other and say, we got it all over you right now.
Right.
We've got 2 programs that won 6 games last year. Mm-hmm. On Miami's side, you have the win from 2019 and 3 consecutive wins, I believe.
Correct.
Which I always think is the ultimate trump card. We played on the field, we won. Unless you're 2-10 and they're 11-1, but that almost never happens.
Right.
So you've got the 3 consecutive wins on the field. They have the more recent substantial success, national championship, ACC championship. So I find it interesting for 2 struggling elite programs. And I've gone through my personal definition of elite, so I'm not going to do that right now. But elite programs that are struggling right now, I know that the numbers for Florida State are 18-20 the past 3 seasons. Not good. Miami 13-13 the past 2 years, coming off 10-3 in 2017. But the battling back and forth, because there's no clear distinction, is kind of amusing from a neutral perspective.
No, I hear you. It's just a thing that's going to be ever present. And to the point of Donald Keith Brooks, who says, competent coaching in any of the last 3 seasons, and Florida State would have beaten Miami. Do you want to back that up and talk about during your run when competent coaching or, the bounce of a ball one way or another, and it doesn't even get to whatever the streak was before Miami started winning these last 3 years? You know what I mean? And honestly, look, I've said it before. Jameis Winston, elite generational talent. Dalvin Cook single-handedly beat Miami 3 years in a row. I mean, you go back, and again, I go to those games. I sit in the stands for those games. It was pin drop silent. In 2000, what was that? 12? 12. Because you guys are coming down this year. Yeah, 2012. And then Dalvin Cook did Dalvin Cook things. And I mean, but I've been there in 2014 even. Look, man, pin drop silent. I mean, it's just all these, or no, I think I got my years wrong. But I mean, throughout that entire run, Miami snatched defeat from victory against Florida State 4 times in the 7 wins that Florida State had. And that's verifiably accurate. We were all there. We all saw those games. We all watched those games. You can go back and look up the box scores and see what happened and when the tide turned so that Florida State did, take advantage of the situation. But, I mean, you can't say one and ignore the other. You know what I mean? Because I know what he's saying is, if we had competent coaching any of the last 3 years, then, Miami would have lost and Florida State would be on a 10 or 11 game winning streak. Oh, but no, Miami was perfect all these times. They were the best. They played their best, and we just beat them. No, you didn't. Absolutely not. And again, we snatched defeat from the hands of victory against y'all twice. So, and I mean, twice, if not more, in that run. I think it was twice consecutively. But yeah, they're going to say what they're going to say, and they can think what they're going to think. But they're always going to be little brother. They're always going to strive to be what we are, and they're always going to continue to be hurt because we've snatched their championship dreams from them multiple times in the past when they had some of their best teams ever with Bobby Bowden through the 90s. And those teams are never going to be champions. Those teams are never going to have beaten Miami, whether it's wide right 1 or 2 or 3 or wide left or any of these teams where you thought that Florida State was better. We beat you. And even if you thought that you were better recently, which is wrong, even though you did have some very good talent, Derwin James, Cameron Akers, all these things where you think that Florida State was better, you're not. And even if you thought that has to double suck for you because we beat you. So shut up.
I don't know if I'm playing with fire here, but imagine yourself a Florida State fan, Cam.
Yikes.
If you had, and again, we've discussed the unique position and role of place kicking in football, unlike any other sport.
Yeah.
If you had those games from the Florida State perspective, and it was just on the foot of a kicker, and that's part of the game. You got to have the guy that closed the deal.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? 3 times? And they finished in the top 5, 14 consecutive years. Mm-hmm. They won 2 national championships during that time, were excruciatingly close, 93, 99. Yeah. Excruciatingly close to winning more. Mm-hmm. You talk about I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan in a previous life. I no longer root for the Cowboys, but when I was growing up, little kid, Cowboys fan, Tom Landry, Roger Staubach. When I first became a Cowboys fan, Tony Dorsett, all those guys. I could go on and on. People talk about, how much I must live and die with Ohio State wins and losses at the age of 52. I no longer do. It's very important to me, but it wasn't what it was when I was 25.
Right.
But when growing up, the Dallas Cowboys, oh my goodness, when they show the catch and that thing, that might be the biggest dagger for me as a sports fan ever. And people never guess it because I haven't been a Cowboys fan forever.
Right.
What was the point I was getting to? Oh, you talk about you talk about being Tom Landry coached 5 Super Bowls. He went to 13 NFC championship games. 13 and lost most of them by you talk about questionable calls, the ice bowl, the last play of the game, the year before that gets forgotten because of the ice bowl. Dallas is at the 2-yard line on 4th down in the very first NFL championship game prior to a Super Bowl. Like he could have been in like 12 Super Bowls. Like it could have been like some ridiculous, but it didn't quite happen. Still obviously we don't need to make apologies for Tom Landry's career with 5 Super Bowl appearances. It could have been just like this unbelievable, where it would be slam dunk greatest coach of all time. And as was noted in something that I watched the other day, the Lombardi Trophy could easily be the Landry Trophy. But I don't think that people really want to hear me talk about Dallas Cowboys lore.
Well, no, but the analogous question was, if I was a Florida State fan, would I feel similarly? And yes, excuse me. Yeah, man. It has to stink, and there's those things for Miami, 2003 Fiesta Bowl, 86 Fiesta Bowl, 88 at Notre Dame. There are those things that, are they stick with you. And so, I'm not saying that we don't have them, but largely we have them against Florida State prior to the last 3 years during that run of 7. There are other times in the past, but the most recent ones are really those grind. But in terms of against Florida State or, in between Florida State and ourselves, we just have the trump card. So they can say, okay, we won these 6 in a row, or, in the late 90s heading into 2000. Cool. We won 6 in a row or 5 in a row in the beginning, 6 in a row in the beginning of the 2000s. Shout out to Chris Ricks going 0-5 against Miami, including a bowl game. You know what I mean? But and you got all the kick missing and everything else. It has to be, because you're talking about with your situation, or with the Dallas Cowboys, a couple plays. And again, you can look at the plays. You can count. It's not like, this random 3rd and 2 in the 3rd quarter. No, this kick, that kick, the other kick, these things at the end of the game that would have altered the outcome and the trajectory of the program. Now you're looking at Florida State with 7, 8 national championships and things like that, except for who? The Miami Hurricanes. Got them.
Yeah, and that's all that matters. So within the Florida State-Miami dynamic, you mentioned the 7 consecutive losses prior to the 3 consecutive wins. Mm-hmm. And that's, for me as a college football fan, that's important. That means a lot. But when we're talking about kind of big picture, historic things that people gravitate as more periphery fans or national fans, I go back to some of the references that you made and a few others when talking about Miami tacking on more championships. Again, you mentioned 2 or 3. We can tack on, did you mention 86 Fiesta Bowl against Penn State, 2000 season in which they could have been selected to be in the BCS championship game.
That one I didn't even mention.
And would have won.
Oh my God. Easily.
And I typically don't go that step to say would have won because the game wasn't played, but they would have won the game.
Yeah.
They were just too talented.
Right. And you lose a game early. And look, we did lose that game. We did it to ourselves. But it could have been different. But yeah. So that's that.
All right. We'll get back to the here and now with Cam Underwood because the questions are piling up. I could talk football history on both the NFL and collegiate level forever.
No, that's a good time.
Fresh
Rapid fire, let's go.
3542 and others, despite the marginal rankings, and I want to use that term correctly because I don't want to discount anybody's high school football playing career and the way they're rated. So again, not the type of ratings we would expect for people to get excited about. There is a lot of talk about Sebastian Sager.
Yeah, I've been seeing that. I know that Miami offered him. I saw the article from Andrew Ivins of 247 Sports about that offer. Sorry. And everything. And yeah, Miami does need linebackers. He's a guy that we're going after. Brooklyn, New York, Erasmus Hall High School, I believe. So he's another guy like a Jared Harrison Hunt and a Jason Blissett Jr. And Adam El Gamal from the New York area that Miami is after. I think it's too early to tell. I don't think that he's a take right now, especially absent a visit, somebody from there, unless he is like an Elijah Arroyo, who's actually from South Florida and then moved away, but I don't think that he is. But he's on the list of linebackers that we're looking at, and it's somebody I think that we can evaluate moving forward. I would like to see more from him. Personally, like, maybe part of a senior year film or, something over this springtime would have been great. But yeah.
Don't read that comment, Cam. We're going to get you sick before lunchtime here.
What?
That's a huge compliment, but Cam doesn't want to even consider. I've already hit him with being a Florida State fan today, so we don't want to do that to him in regards to that.
Absolutely not.
But we'll take the Cam. Just focus on the complimentary portion of that.
But thank you.
All right. I'm trying to catch up with the live chat. I'm always 20 or 25 minutes behind because there are certain comments I want to keep on the screen or we get involved in a conversation. So I'm desperately trying to keep up. And I want to mention that my good buddy Mike Raymond was in the chat. Good to see him touting Ohio State ticket sales, or what was the term, just in regards to the conversation we were having about how many people can be expected in the stands. I'm looking for a topic. What's our big picture deal here? RC into the 305. Mark, let's see the big picture here. You didn't get top talent and develop them. You were not visible to the rest of the college football world. Don't know what that's referring to.
Me either.
Keyshawn Smith, the subject from Brandon there.
Oh, look, I said it. I think that Keyshawn Smith is going to come in and he's going to play. He's a guy, again, he was committed to Washington State. Mike Leach left. He got out of his LOI, contacted Stephen Field. There's, a love with the University of Miami from when he was a young kid, got into school. Took a red eye, got into school the last day to add a class, took a red eye, was in class the next Wednesday, actually the next day in the spring semester. And yeah, he's a guy who could probably still grow an inch or two. And he moves like Stacey Coley did coming out of high school and just has skills. And I think that he fits in this, new offense that I think that Rhett Lashley is going to run. And yeah, I think that he's going to play. And I think that, he's going to come and take somebody's spot, which is the goal of recruiting. You should be trying to recruit over what you have on the roster. But, if you develop the guys, then obviously you're just stacking talent on top of talent. But if the guys who are on the roster are not performing, then look, I'm going to go get somebody else who can. There was a question about the Palmetto 5, one of our new contributors at State of the U, because we finally finished contributor recruitment. Robbie Espin, high school kid who goes to Belen Jesuit, wrote a great piece about the Palmetto 5, that being Corey Collier, Leonard Taylor, Savion Collins, Jason Marshall, and Brashard Smith, and their college recruiting journeys and things like that, because they are an elite group of 5 players. Somebody said that he thinks that Miami is going to get 3 of those 5. I would take any 3 of those 5. Any 3. Honestly. Because you got 2 defensive tackles, you got 2 defensive backs, a cornerback and a safety, more likely than not, and a slot receiver, who are all 4 stars and above, who are all elite talents. Give me any of those, 3 of those 5. That's I can't tell you how big of a win that is. And I know people are thinking about the 2008 Miami Northwestern class. So, we're just going to get everybody from there. That's probably not going to happen again. Where you're going to get all, like the top 9 players off the national championship team. Who, like twice undefeated, Ja'Cory Harris on that squad, Marcus Forston, Brandon Washington. You're not going to run down all of them. And guys of this caliber, I don't think that you're going to go 5 for 5. But 3 for 5, oh my God. Look, today on June the 6th, if I have to make a choice or if I had to be in and say, okay, I'll take an 8-4 season, but 3 out of the Palmetto 5, sign me up. Sign me up right now. Right now.
As opposed to a what season? A 10-2 season?
As opposed to 10-2 in one of them? Yeah. Yeah. That's worth 2 wins to me. Absolutely. Because those guys are going to win. They're going to be worth the 2 wins moving forward. So, 8-4 is still a step in the right direction. Just got to iron out some of the kinks, but we're still moving in a positive direction. And you get 3 of those dudes, again, and go to State of the U. It's up on the front page. It's a great piece. Robbie Espin, one of our new guys, wrote it. Go look at the profiles and the measurables and the performance and the statistics of those 5 dudes from Miami Palmetto. And you got to tell me that I got to settle for an 8, maybe 9-win season overall to get 3 of them, and I end up with 3 of those dudes at the end of it on signing day on the roster moving forward, guaranteed. Sign me up.
Here are the guidelines, and I'm spitballing this off the top of my head, so these are made-up guidelines in the moment. These are the guidelines in regards to me reading a Super Chat comment. I will read any Super Chat comment that is not defamatory or using profanity toward any of my guests or another team, or profanity in any way. I will even read hateful, insulting comments toward me if they're in the Super Chat, but nobody else. But I will read them toward me. So those are basically the guidelines for the Super Chat in regards to posting and reading. In terms of the live chat, this is what I would hope. I would hope that there is clean. These 2 terms do not. This is an oxymoron, but I think everyone will understand. Clean trash talking. So we have clean trash talking, and we are not offensive toward anyone's personal situations, gender, race, religion, etc., anything like that, or just personal attacks. All right. So because of the guidelines that we have here in the Super Chat, Turan, Mark Rogers was speaking facts about the Canes, but at the end of the day, boo, Mark Rogers, Ohio State sucks.
No, that's funny.
So Lionel Gibbs sees no reason why there won't be an undefeated season. And Dallas Turner is being asked about where he will commit. You talk about possibly adding up to at least 2 wins. Second-rated weak side defensive end, 10th-rated player in the state of Florida, top 50 player nationally out of Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas.
And there you go, St. Thomas Aquinas. Remember last week we were talking about the insane notion that St. Thomas Aquinas was going to become a University of Michigan satellite feeder school? It's guys like Dallas Turner that immediately disprove that, because he's not even considering them. He's not going to go there. Alabama or Georgia, probably for him. I mean, because he's that kind of guy. Yeah. So, I mean, that's it. He's a very talented guy. Very talented. Oh, supremely talented. Anybody in America would love to add Dallas Turner to their roster, but I think it's going to be one of those 2 schools. In terms of an undefeated season and things like that, we've seen one of them recently. And by one recently, I mean during most people's lifetimes in 2001. Even the 2000 team, which, controversial opinion alert, the 2000 team more talented than the 2001 team. They didn't even go undefeated. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough. And what's to stand in the way of an undefeated season, a 10-win season, things like that? The University of Miami is what's going to stand in the way, or could potentially stand in the way. Because, again, we've seen it. We've seen Miami piss away. Look back to last year. There's no reason that shouldn't have been a 10-win season. There's no reason. I mean, there were losses on there that were, I mean, you have them etched in stone as wins. You know? So if you're thinking, oh, there's no possible way, bro, like, let us not forget where we've just come from. You know, like revisionist history is great and everything, but like we were all there. We saw those games last year. You know, and whether it's, you know, and look, going into the year, you know, we get the athletic piece, wonderful seminal piece from Bruce Feldman. Where the fuck is Dan Enos? Because that was what Nick Saban was screaming through the facility when they're going to that staff meeting and everything. And the secretary finally had to be like, he left. You know what I mean? So don't come at me and talk about, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Because this time last year, we all thought what we were going to get from Dan Enos was different than what we got. So we're all saying, okay, this is going to be this is going to be that. We have this talent. We have, you know, we're going to fit in. We're going to do all these kind of things. That didn't happen. So while I want to be very excited, and I am very excited about what we're going to do this year, while we have the talent to, again, hit this level of performance, we've seen time after time after time after time, 2018, 2019, 2015, all these other times, 16, for most of 17, well, the end of 17, even through 17, because 17 was smoke and mirrors. And I tried to tell y'all that along the way to enjoy the ride, because we should not have been 10-0 because there were a couple games that we should have lost. So the thing that could stand between Miami and this season that you're talking about, undefeated, 11 wins, whatever, is Miami.
Not understanding. I understand the Ohio State portion of that statement, but not the Florida State portion of that statement where they owe a championship.
Yeah, I don't.
Luke Walker having fun with me. Steelers fan beating up on the Cowboys in the 70s. Again, I could do 3 hours on that in regards to getting
right
stolen a Super Bowl 13.
I mean, hey, at least you're not a Lions fan, right?
Well, I'm a Browns fan.
Oh, yikes.
And that's technically speaking. They really don't have my heart.
Right.
It's just, I'm from there. I root for all the teams. But the Indians have my heart. The Cavs, yeah, when they went on the run against the Warriors and everybody else, and during the LeBron era, because my son was so avid, he pulled me into it, and I got my heartstrings attached. But generally, don't care. It's basically the Indians, but technically Browns, Cavs, Indians.
Gotcha.
On the professional level, like you with the Detroit teams.
Yeah, man. You know, I went to all those things. I saw a thing. Bill Connolly, great guy. Used to be at SB Nation. Now is at ESPN. Wrote a piece about all the greatest Hail Marys ever. So of course you're talking about Doug Flutie, and of course you're talking about Kordell Stewart. So one that happened against Miami, and then one that happened against Michigan, and the latter was one where I was there at Michigan Stadium, rooting on the Wolverines in my youth, in my teenage years, and saw, I mean, it's the most incredible throw I've ever seen personally. And I mean, like, it was a rocket. Like, I mean, I've watched a lot of football. I've been to a lot of football games, high school, pro, you know, college, all the things. I've never seen a throw like when Kordell Stewart let that ball go. We're just like, okay, we're gonna. He threw it and said, "Oh wait!" I mean, it was like one of those, like when it left his hand, we we're like, "Whoa, wait, what is happening right now?" Like it was like that kind of a moment. So yeah, there's that.
All right, we've got Cam each and every week here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, for our Hurricanes live show. And we have reached the bewitching hour of noon Eastern time on a Saturday. So we're going to wrap things up.
Let me address the question.
Sure,
On
absolutely.
the screen first from Carl Olive, who read the Palmetto 5 piece. Again, it was our in general, but Robbie Espin's individual. He penned that. So out of the 5 recruits, who do you see as realistic targets, or you see the Northwestern group? I don't see it as the Northwestern group. From 2008-9 recruiting class. I do not see Miami getting all 5 of the guys from Palmetto. That would be such a gigantic win. Like it's nearly unfathomable to consider all 5 of those guys going to the same school, let alone that same school being Miami. Of them, I would say Brashard Smith is probably the most realistic. Savion Collins is currently committed, but most people think he's going to end up at Florida. We'll see if he sticks or how things trend in that way. Corey Collier is a Florida State legacy, but he has Miami in his top group. Leonard Taylor is a guy who transferred over from Miami somewhere else. I'm sorry. Savion Collins transferred from Southwest Miami. Leonard Taylor is another guy, but again, I would take him. And then Jason Marshall is a 5-star cornerback who's like 6'2", 6'3", just the prototype. So, of course, he has the prototypical schools in Clemson, Georgia, and Alabama as his top 3 at present. Miami is obviously going to kind of still keep shooting the shot, but it looks like he's going to go elsewhere. So I would say that would probably be the order if I had to rank them. Smith, Collins, only because it's currently committed, Collier, Taylor, and Marshall in order of likelihood or chance at this date for those guys coming to Miami.
The high up-tempo offense helping the defense. I would think that the only way that helps is by scoring a lot of points. But otherwise, it can hurt.
Exactly. Defense. I mean, right, it's not going to be the tempo. It's going to be the production. You're going to put crooked numbers on the board. And that's going to help the defense as opposed to what we saw at the end of last year because that's not really great. Or it was openly atrocious. Because still, Miami was the only team in the country to get shut out in their bowl game. So yeah, that was pretty disgusting. Yeah,
I've never seen this gentleman's handle, but man, he's putting a lot of authority on me. I am the source of Miami's delusions.
I shudder to ask for clarification, because I'm wondering about which or what. Basically, I am delusional because, if I'm the one here talking, maybe he's referring to people in the chat. But okay.
Some people have take exception with me giving Miami too much time, too much space.
Oh, well, they'll deal with it.
That's my decision.
Enjoy the show.
And I've outlined it.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, before we get out of here, I know that you had asked me about yesterday and everything. And I know people kind of been waiting for me to say something about what's going on in our country. I'm a black man in America. I always have been my entire life, and I'm going to be. Police brutality it's not getting worse. It's just getting seen. You know what I mean? It is a thing that we all, unfortunately, people of color have to deal with. I've gotten pulled over for driving while black a couple of times, even in, places where you wouldn't think that would happen, in majority black enclaves around Atlanta and downtown Miami, downtown Detroit, places like that. When I worked at Interlochen Arts Camp in Northern Michigan by Traverse City, I got pulled over. And I had, we were coming back from a night out as our camp staff. And so I had, honestly, I had 3 other people in the car, and they were all white. And I believe that saved my life that night, 100%. I got pulled over for doing 35 and a 25 through a residential. There was no sign or anything, but they had just changed the law in Michigan where the line on the on the curb of the road determined where the thing and where it changed. And actually, I was doing 32, so I wasn't even doing the speed limit. And then I got pulled over, and I pulled over into a service station, abandoned service station. And they pulled me out of the car and everything. And there's 7 cruisers, and there's 2 supervisors there. And, I had a couple of friends were from San Francisco, and they're very, very liberal people. And they kind of got out and, started advocating for me in a very loud way. And I appreciated that. And I had that in that one instance. But, at any of these situations, that happen, whether it's Ahmaud Arbery, just any of them, I cannot help but look and think, there but for the grace of God go I. What is stopping that from being me? Or anyone that I know, anyone that I love, my family members, my friends, just people that I know from Twitter, like anything. And it is an ongoing and ever-present fight. It is a thing that we have to deal with. And I appreciate the protests that are going on. I've done what I can. I'm not necessarily a look. I know that like I'm on your screen right now, or if you're listening to this on podcast, I'm on your electronic device, but I'm not that superstar person. I've never wanted that center stage kind of placement. When I was a musician, I was in choir. I had solos, but I didn't want to be the soloist. I didn't want to be Gladys Knight. I wanted to be the Pips. And even with this, I'm similar, where I've done a lot of things and I do things, but I don't necessarily look for the glory with them. I don't say, okay, well, I'm doing da 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 da. But I appreciate what everyone's doing, and I thank everyone who is raising their voice and their platform to help and support Black people, because we cannot be the agents of change. We raise a voice and turn hopefully attention to the issue, but it's going to take some of the agency of the oppressors to change this. Because, what can I do to help to keep you from killing me? Like I'm a Black man. I have a big personality, I have a big voice and everything. And if you feel threatened just by my presence, there's nothing that I can do to dissuade you of that. That's going to have to take help from other people. And that's what we're seeing. And the coordinated just killing of Black people has to stop. And I know people who are police officers, and I'm not going to say that all police officers are bad, but even a good officer who stands idly by when another officer does something malfeasant becomes a bad officer. And I'm not saying that we don't need policing. I'm not saying that we don't need law enforcement, but we don't need them to unlawfully and unjustly kill Black people. We don't need white people to call the police over some bullshit in the hopes that what happened to all of these people who are unfortunately lost their lives is going to happen again. You saw the lady in Central Park who's threatened to call the cops on a guy with a PhD in bird watching science because she hoped that what happened to all these other Black people would then happen to him. That wasn't an idle threat. That was a threat for death. And I've said these things. I've said it to my cousin who's in the military, that being Black is a death sentence in America. It is. Because at any moment, someone can choose to end your life. And that's what we're seeing. And that's what we're protesting against. And that right there is the heart of what Colin Kaepernick peacefully protested for by kneeling during the national anthem to the side by himself. Now, we can talk about the militarization of the NFL. We can talk about how we're trying to use that as a proxy for patriotism, so that, we're playing the national anthem and we're unfurling the largest flags that are allowed, which is larger than the guidelines allow, but then they give a special dispensation to the NFL and to all these bowl games and things to have a flag that large. But racism in this country is so American that if you protest racism, it then becomes a proxy that you're protesting America. I love being an American, 100%. I hate what this country does and has done to me and my people, to people of color, whether you are from here or you're born here or not. Because truth of the story, my ancestors were not from here. We were brought here by force, by others. Yet and still, again, I love being here. But we cannot sit idly by. And as Martin Luther King said, that protest is the is what people who are unheard do. It is for the voiceless. And we are trying to have a voice. And whether it is as a sports commentator, whether it's as a teacher, whether it is as a truck driver, whether it's as a janitor, whether it's as a nerd, whether it's as somebody who sings, whether it's somebody who dances, whether it's somebody who loves bright colors, whether it's somebody who draws, writes, or whatever else you want to say. There are so many shades of blackness, and all we want to do is live. All we want is the same ability to do that as others without jogging being the thing that gets us killed, without getting in an accident and walking towards someone's home in front of where the accident happened to beg for help because help is needed. We don't want that to be the reason that we're killed. Trying to pass a fake $20 bill should not be a death sentence. Selling water on a corner on a hot day should not be a death sentence worthy infraction. Period. So I urge you to find it in your hearts to support us, we, Black people, people of color in this country, because it is a thing that while we can say whatever we want to say, however loud and however often, unless white people join in to help change this system, it won't change. So think about me, think about whoever you know, the cook at your favorite restaurant or your favorite athlete. Regardless of what you think that we, or the value that you or get from our lives because of what we do for you, giving you this content, giving you that food, giving you this athletic game, this competition thing that you can root for. Apart from any of that, we are humans. And I know that in a lot of places, the only thing that a lot of people, a lot of white people, the only value that they get is from the entertainment or product that Black people provide. But when we're not providing that product, when we're not giving that entertainment, we're still people, we're still living, we're still breathing, and we're still Black. And we would like to stay that way. And we can only be that, stay that, get that with your help. And I'm done.
I don't want to take away from anything that was just stated, because I've given a platform to a number of people this week, and everything they have had to say was meaningful and valid. I didn't agree with 100%, but pretty close to 100%. The only portion of this that I will voice that I have issue with, well, I have issue with a lot of things, but I will just mention one, is that because of the actions of others and then the attitude that's out there on both sides, I've been placed in a position, and this is a very minute level of suffering, that's even an overstatement, level of discomfort that I have to put up with because of, again, the actions and attitudes of others, that has placed me in a position that if I try to bring up any, let's say it be data, counterpoint, then I'm targeted as a racist, which is furthest thing from the truth, unfortunately. But in this environment, for example, I didn't say anything on Twitter for a couple of days. I had made a lot of posts on Facebook supporting the Black community, but I had two people call me out on Twitter as a racist because I was silent. Or they thought I was silent. I just chose not to use Twitter because I'm not a big Twitter guy, so I'm a racist. I made statements not saying that I would have fired Willie Taggart, but that I understood the firing of Willie Taggart based on the performance on the field. I was called dozens of times a racist.
Well, in terms of that one, it's not even saying that his race was the determining factor. It was just that it was a very present contributing factor or underlying, or it was a consideration, So
there was a demotion, not a firing, a demotion of the Monday Night Football team on ESPN a few weeks ago of a white play-by-play announcer and a black analyst. Both were demoted. And there was a very prominent female black former ESPN commentator who went off on the racist decision that was made. I clearly just pointed out there was a decision made. We don't know the motivation other than it appears as though they want a better product on the air because we had one white demoted and one black demoted.
Right.
Why is this a racist issue? And then I was pointed out as being a racist just for offering a counterpoint.
No,
and that's where I don't like living, where I can't join in the conversation and discussion, trying to take a very understanding approach, but also providing just some logic.
Yeah, but sometimes things are not up for debate or discussion. Sometimes I said what I said. And look, I mean, you're free to controvert that or take a different approach. But yeah, there's just some times where things are not necessarily a debate. You know what I mean? That or the person who says a thing is not looking for a debate. It's just that they're saying a statement. I don't necessarily agree with Jamil Hill and what she said about that demotion and everything, because again, Joe Tessitore also. But that was her viewpoint, and she's free to feel that way. But yeah, I've been thinking about it for a while, and I know that people have been kind of, what's Cam going to say, or because I use Twitter often. I am a Twitter person, and I haven't said anything on Twitter necessarily. I mean, I've retweeted a bunch of things and whatnot, but I haven't openly stated or written a post or things like that. But yeah, I wanted to take that time or this time to do that. And I appreciate, you all bearing with. And I hope that something that I said sticks with you, honestly. And so, yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for me. And you know where to find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're at The State of the U. My personal Twitter is at Underwood Sports. So whether you would like to debate this or something else, you can hit me there. Also, we have a new group of contributors at the website, which is at stateoftheu.com, where we're always working and looking at Hurricanes athletics. And I hope that you come and fan with us there. And whether you come and fan with us there or whether you don't, I hope, against hope, that you support us. And I mean us as Black people, as we try to have the same rights and freedoms and liberties as everyone else in this country. And on that note, good afternoon.
Thanks, Cam. We'll see everyone later as well.